So last we have sexual expression, right? It's like whoever thought that sexuality would be so complicated, right? So we have our biological sex, we have our sexual identity, how we feel for ourselves, who we are attracted to, right? Brain chemistry helps complete that part for us if we really listen to it, right? But then we also have sexual expression. And sexual expression can be really complicated for a lot of people because on the outside, where one moves toward, where one expresses, it may not fit with their identity. And this is super important in terms of trying to be affirming for other people. Right, so I've got some words here that I really just want to break down. So over here on the right, so we have, you think about just about any form in the United States that you fill out, right, for years, single, married, divorced, right? That's kind of how we have labeled how one expresses their sexual identity, right? I'm either single, I'm in relation to no one, I'm married, which means I'm attached to somebody, or I'm divorced, right? These three terms are becoming less clear and less helpful to people. So what I have in the middle here, so the idea of relationships really being more full and a little more complicated, right? It's complicated up in the right there. But it's not so complicated, right? If you think about being affirming and inclusive. So if you think about straight presenting, I like this term because straight implies that you see a male and a female individual in a relationship together. One, you're making an assumption that that is where their pronouns are. Again, we'll talk about gender. Straight presenting is saying they're in a straight presenting relationship. A straight relationship or a heterosexual relationship implies that is an innate label for those people. Straight presenting is saying this is what this relationship looks like at this point in time. A mixed gender relationship, again, we'll talk about gender, that idea of multiple genders are visible. So it could be male female. It could be female transgender. Could be male and a non-binary individual, right? Could be a gender non-conforming person, right? So mixed gender just means they are a mixture of genders. Again, it's more affirming, more inclusive. Same gender, again, homosexual relationship has often been the label that people have used. Same gender, again, it's more affirming, less of a harmful term. Homosexual has such a strong negative connotation to it for a lot of people. Same gender is much more affirming and inclusive of they are of the same gender, whatever that might be, right? And then how one expresses that relationship, again, they're cohabitating, right? It could be an open relationship, or it could be what's called a throuple. So it could be a relationship between three people, okay? So for some people, this slide could be really affirming, really validating, and really open their mind as to what's possible. For some people, it could be very, very scary. My guess is most of you are somewhere in the middle, and that is totally okay. If you have any questions about any of this, you're welcome to message me. You're welcome to email me. You can talk to other people who might also be knowledgeable. You can do your own research to kind of learn what this is about. You can also just kind of keep following along, and maybe your questions will get answered for you. Okay, so just some questions that I want to pose, right? So I mentioned before, so the idea of heterosexual and homosexual, right? Again, these labels can be limiting for a lot of people. And again, that's where that same gender or mixed gender relationship, that label can be much more affirming, right? I also hear people ask, so what if I've never had a sexual experience, right? How can I know for sure how I identify? This is such a great question. And what I really like about the idea of sexual identity, that's for you, right? Sexual identity is for you. It is how you identify. It's what you know to be true. Again, it's brain chemistry. So what you move toward, right? The person, the energy, what has you moving, right? Pay attention to that. There's energy that has you moving toward women. There's energy that has you moving toward men. There's energy that has you moving toward this person, right? Listen to that energy, right? How you identify, right? What labels work for you is secondary to, are you moving towards something that feels true and authentic and real to you? And you don't have to have a sexual experience to find a label, right? You actually don't need the labels at all, right? But you can really open up people's world when you ask them about, so who do you move toward, right? And that's where identity can really start to form, okay? So some terms that are super important. So the idea of heteronormativity. I can't talk about sexuality without talking about heteronormativity. So the idea of coming out, the binary system, heteronormativity is really the explanation for it. So the idea of a heteronormative culture, it's that idea that we're all born straight, right? Heteronormative, heterosexual, we are all born straight. And those of us that fit outside of heterosexuality, we must come out of the closet, right? The closet is where the non-straight people of the world live. And until we come out, we are stuck in this heteronormative culture. It's the assumption that we are straight. Heteronormativity can be super painful and limiting because it can lead to prejudice, right? So anybody who doesn't fit with that heteronormative culture, there is something wrong with you. There's an expectation for how this relationship should look, expectation for who you should move toward. If you're male, you move toward female. If you're female, you move toward male. You don't even think about it, right? That's the assumption. Heterosexism comes from the idea of, I'm going to have negative thoughts and viewpoints toward you because you don't fit with how things are supposed to be. Okay? Homophobia is also helpful. Again, heteronormativity, heterosexism. Homophobia is that movement toward you don't fit with how things are supposed to be. And these are the overt ways that I'm going to express that prejudice upon you. And that's super dangerous, right? As we're seeing in the world right now, the idea of racism, what that looks like, it's really painful, not only making assumptions, but acting on those assumptions, right? That breeds homophobia, that breeds heterosexism, that breeds racism, right? There is also internalized homophobia, right? So I talked today about, a more inclusive, more affirming way of talking about sexuality. A lot of people might be seeing that as, well, that's really freeing and liberating for me. I wish I could be more open about who I am, right? Internalized homophobia is really helpful to talk about because for a lot of people, depending on who they grew up with, the environment, the culture, right? If you're surrounded by, which we all are, that heteronormative culture, right? The expectations for what relationships should look like, that expectation for who I'm supposed to be with, right? Some of the negative ways that people talk about homophobia, they talk about same-gender relationships, right? We can internalize that as, if I engage in those relationships, I'm doing something wrong. And the fear is, well, there might be something wrong with me. People are going to hate me because I was raised to hate these people. I was raised to think negatively about these people. And that is where internalized homophobia comes from. So my hope, and really this whole month, the idea of layers and not labels, the primary gain is really to just create new language. But ultimately, if there is more language, if there's more of an affirming tone, if there's more inclusivity and more acceptance, homophobia is decreased. Heteronormativity there's really chipped away at. So hopefully people who do not fit within the expected standard can feel more affirmed that there is no expected. I can just be who I am. Because ultimately that is what saves lives. Right? If I can be who I am without judgment, without fear, life can feel a lot easier. Right? So we're over 20 minutes, so I'm going to stop there. I'm hoping that today was educational, maybe eye-opening, maybe affirming, or maybe you're just like, cool, I know all that stuff. Why am I here? And it's like, well, I'm so glad that you are educated and informed. So again, reminder this week, today we talked about sexuality. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about gender. And then Friday I'm going to have a discussion. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, so layersnotlabeled@gmail.com. Drop me an email. This is going to be posted on YouTube. I'm going to send it off to Facebook, send it off to Instagram. If you have any desire to comment, you're welcome to. Again, if you have questions, even if there's just some challenge, right? Find a question. I would love to be part of a dialogue. The timing of all of this is very fascinating to me. There's a lot going on in the world right now, but this still feels really good to me to be doing right now because so much of the rioting, the protests, we're just having a hard time really coming together as people right now. So I'm hoping that talking about LGBTQ individuals in the month of Pride contributes to this conversation of humanity and seeing the whole person. I'm Dr. Angela Koivula. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with me today and listen to me. Hopefully some of this was helpful. Take care, y'all.